Hello, everyone. I'm just going to give it a few minutes for people to come in. But today I'm going to be talking about darkness. And what I mean by that is suffering, feelings of pain, feelings of despair, and even depression. Kind of how to manage those things while you're manifesting, what they mean on a mystical, spiritual level, and just overall understanding it and not having fear, and just through the understanding of darkness, pain, and suffering, it'll help you to understand how to manifest and the relationship it has to manifesting, having a better mental life, and just overcoming whatever feelings that may be bothering you. Feelings of depression, feelings of heaviness. So that's what we're going to do today. That's what I'm going to talk about. Hi, Vanessa. So we'll just give it a few minutes for people to come in. And for those of you just entering in today, I'm going to be talking about the idea of darkness, pain, and suffering in relation to manifestation, spirituality, how to overcome those things in your life, and how to manifest despite what's happening in your life. Okay. I'll give it like one more minute. Drop something here. All right. Okay. A minute's passed. I'm just writing some things down. All right. Hello, everyone. For those just coming in, today I'm going to be talking about darkness, feelings of depression, how you can manifest despite what's happening in your life, those feelings of pain and suffering, what role they play in your life, how to overcome them, and what it means for you as a whole, and what it means in spirituality and mysticism and manifestation. So one of the first things I want to say about this is that a lot of people shy away from feeling like, depression and feelings of heaviness are actually a bad thing. Now, they are uncomfortable, and usually they get in the way a lot of the time. Now, you can get overwhelmed with despair and feeling like there's no hope. What the relationship with manifestation, the way it intertwines is that usually when you have depression or some kind of pain or suffering, this means simply that there is emptiness, there's something missing. Now, typically in manifestation, what happens is you have a desire. You usually go through some kind of suffering. You want more for your life, whatever it may be. Now, the contrast between what you want and where you are now, or the current pain you're experiencing, is big enough to where you are literally suffering. Now, this is known as darkness or pain, suffering, whatever you want to call it. So these feelings typically get overshadowed within ourselves. So we identify with that rather than what we want for ourselves in our life. So what happens a lot of the time is we identify with the pain itself rather than learning how to navigate through the darkness, navigate through the subconscious, navigate through our emotions themselves. Hello, how you doing? Hello, everyone just coming in right now. So I'm just talking about darkness, feelings of despair and suffering, how to manifest. Well, yeah, most of the time, pain comes from having desire, having a feeling of emptiness. If feeling fulfilled causes you to be satisfied, then naturally a feeling of emptiness makes you feel pain or suffering. A very common example is the example of hunger. Now, you usually feel pain when you're empty. There's nothing in your stomach. Your stomach starts to growl. Now, that is a physical sensation that you feel. So all you have to do is simply eat something and it goes away. Mentally, emotionally, it works a lot the same way. When you have emptiness within you, in your heart, in your mind, within your being, this causes pain typically, pain and suffering. And when it comes to manifestation, when you have emptiness, pain and suffering within you, then it reflects outwardly in your physical life, in your experience. So this is how these things play. So not only are you suffering outside of you in your external reality, but as you suffer within, as you have emptiness, as you have that despair, it then manifests outwardly. So you see how it's like a deadly cycle where you have emptiness, you have desire, it goes unfulfilled, and then it continues to manifest and it continues to just be something that overwhelms you. This is how you have those feelings of suffering and despair. So as you identify yourself with those feelings, they just continue to happen, and then it becomes the state that you continually embody until you do something about it. But the real purpose of all of these things happening in the first place is just to help you to move forward in your life. Because if you didn't have emptiness, you wouldn't know to fill it up, if that makes sense. If you were hungry and you never felt the hunger impulse, that stomach growling feeling, that little bit of pain, you wouldn't know to go eat. So pain is a signal. But a lot of times we identify too much with the pain. We identify with the uncomfortable feeling, the uncomfortable sensations, so much so that it's just who we are, and it's kind of like our personality. It becomes a part of us that we feel like that's just what it is and that's what it should be. But it just identifies something that needs to change. Without that little bit, there's nothing to encourage you or to move you forward. There's no fire, in other words, to get you moving. Because if you didn't have a desire, you would just be completely content with doing everything you're doing currently. There's no incentive to want to change, want to do anything, or even get better, do more with your life, in other words. So this is the point of desire. Many times you hear desire is something that is evil, it's something that is bad, and that is true. But desire that is unfulfilled is actually what it truly is, because that is the cause of all suffering, all pain, emptiness, having desire, wanting. It simply means that you do not have. And that's exactly the terms we talk about in manifestation. You do not have, therefore you will never have. So you must learn to fulfill that void within yourself by understanding the principles of manifestation, principles of mysticism and spirituality, which go into embodying states, using your imagination. Because you can literally be stuck if you look around your life, look at your physical reality. Sometimes there's no way out, but then you must train yourself to use your mind and get out in other ways, because sometimes that's just what it is. But as far as pain and suffering, this is your catalyst. This will help you to move forward the most. So again, with the example of hunger, you enjoy food a lot more when you're hungry. If you're perpetually full, let's say, if you try to eat something on a full stomach, no matter if it's your favorite food, you will not enjoy it the same way. So in manifestation, what this means is when you have this emptiness, when you have the feeling of desire within yourself and you want to manifest, usually the pain will actually help you move forward, because through the contrast of where you are now and where you want to be, if you know how to use your imagination, if you know how to meditate, if you know how to really feel your manifestation, the contrast, the intense pain that you're currently in, contrasted with what you want, and that fulfillment becomes so big that it helps you move forward quicker, if that makes sense. It's like being hungry and having your favorite food. It just feels a lot better. It's more satisfying. This is how you use pain in order to manifest. Rather than focus on what's happening currently, you fulfill yourself. And then that helps you feel much more fulfilled than usual. Hello, everyone coming in right now. But yeah, That's the contrast between pleasure and pain. You don't always want to dwell necessarily in pleasure, because then that just simply means that there is you're already fulfilled. There's no need to do anything. But once you have that desire come within you, then there is need to fulfill it. Not everybody has the same desires. And I always say this because it's something that's very true. Some people are completely content living the life that they have, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But some people have a natural desire to want more. And then this pain of wanting to move forward in your life and not being able to is what causes all of that suffering. But that simply just means that you're supposed to do more. You just have to learn to manifest. You have to learn to execute what you want. Not simply by working harder, but also just aligning mentally and then putting in the work in order to get what you want. And I feel like that's a lot of people, especially nowadays. Manifestation is becoming something bigger, and spirituality, mysticism. So understanding how these things play really helps. In order to manifest during suffering, it's very important that you don't over-identify with the state that you're in. So if suffering is something that you currently experience, you may notice that despite what you have physically, despite all the people around you, let's say, you still might feel lonely, you still might feel empty, even if you have a lot of money, even if you think that you have everything you can possibly want. It's because, it goes back to the age-old saying, money doesn't bring happiness. And that's because it's not about money or physical things. It's about that feeling of emptiness that I'm telling you. So these things can bring on depression. These things can bring on suffering and a feeling of lack, even though you can have a lot of things, whether it's a lot of friendships, a lot of material things, money, cars, whatever it is. That's because it doesn't come from those things. It all comes from how you manage these emotions when they come up. Now, usually, depression is something that's considered uncurable, something that is, you're stuck. That's just what you have. It's like a diagnosis. Depression in spiritual circles, in mysticism, simply means that there is something missing within you. Now, depending on where you go, you hear people say, I must be filled with God because he is the one that fills you up. Now, this is true, but I'm going to break this down so that you can understand what it means. To be fulfilled, as far as God goes, simply means to be perpetually fulfilled. So the Bible verse to compare what I'm talking about would be when Jesus is talking to the woman at the well. So the idea is that there's a woman at a well who goes up every once in a while to get water because she's thirsty. Now, thirst represents you feel empty. There's a feeling of you need to fill yourself with something. You want to be quenched or satisfied. So again, it's the feeling of emptiness. So you have to go somewhere to get fulfilled. So Jesus goes up to this woman and says, look, I have this everlasting water where you don't ever have to go retrieve this water ever again. You're just going to be perpetually quenched all the time. So what this actually means is using your imagination, fulfilling yourself in manifestation, raising your consciousness and your awareness overall so that you're no longer seeking external validation or external things in order to fulfill yourself temporarily. It's a perpetual fulfillment. And that's what is meant by that. When people say you have to be fulfilled by God, it's that everlasting water, so to speak. And water is synonymous with your emotions, which is just fulfillment or overcoming of the emotional nature itself. Having your emotions under your control and no longer letting them guide you, or being a feather in the wind, as I say. You want to be above them, but always be perpetually fulfilled. It's also like in the Bible when it says Jesus didn't come to abolish the law, he came to fulfill the law. In other words, fulfill the law, fulfill yourself. You want to be in a state of fulfillment, not a state of emptiness or lack. So depression in spiritual terms and mysticism simply is a time for you to learn to fulfill yourself, because there's two ways of being. The opposite of depression would be expression, or in other words, express yourself outwardly. Depression encourages you to go within. So with these feelings of heaviness, with these feelings of suffering, that is the time that is most conducive to meditation, most conducive to imagining, to manifesting, because this is the time when you can hear those messages in your head to fulfill yourself and receive those messages from your higher self, the universe, in other words. So it becomes most conducive. This is known as well, depression is known as compression, where you go within. So everything has cycles, just like when you breathe. You breathe in, then you exhale. You breathe in, that's compression. Then when you release, that's expression. So during the compression time, this is the time where you're building your inner world. So then when it's time for you to release, that is when your physical manifestation happens in your reality. So there's the relationship. It's always in and out. This is the law of rhythm. Everything goes in and out. So these things play. So as you feel these feelings within yourself, it's about just understanding that it's trying to communicate something to you. It's trying to help you to see something, understand something. And it's not something to be afraid of, because we all go through heavy feelings and suffering and even depression sometimes. But if you stop looking at it as a bad thing, it's something that you can overcome with time, with understanding how to go within yourself, identify those patterns that play within your head and your subconscious mind, not be afraid of them, but just see them. Don't judge them. And then they will help you tremendously in not only feeling better in your everyday life psychologically, but help you to understand manifestation a lot better as well. And hello, Starseed, how are you doing? It's good to see you. Another way to describe this would be explaining the night and day cycle as well. There's always the two. With breathing in and out, it's also night and day. The night has a specific thing that it does, just like the daytime does. They both have their balance. So the balance helps you to understand things better and to enjoy things better. It's really annoying sometimes, I feel like, when people say, you wouldn't enjoy life if it wasn't for pain, or you wouldn't know what pleasure is or happiness if it wasn't for pain or suffering. But that is very true, because this really puts it into perspective that through the contrast, it will help you to be a catalyst into the next breakthrough you have in your life. So understanding that pain is not something that is supposed to hinder you, but supposed to move you forward and to push you to become better, it changes the whole story, because it's not something that you actually run away from. It's something that you accept, and not just accept, but understand as a necessary part of you moving forward. And I'm not saying that you have to be in these cycles of up and down all the time. I'm saying that once you really understand suffering or depression and all these things, then you actually don't feel it anymore. It becomes something that is just neutral. And you balance the light aspect in your life and the dark aspect, and they become in one, in harmony. And that's what I'm talking about. It's like yin and yang. So what I want to emphasize here now, as I was talking about suffering and all these things, I feel like I don't even have to talk about suffering as much, because we know we all go through it. But I just want to talk about the balance now. The balance between light and dark, happiness or fulfillment and emptiness. And that is just the middle line, which is neutrality. Feeling fulfilled all the time and not feeling like you lack anything, because now we're entering a state of equilibrium. So equilibrium is a very interesting word. And I'll get into astrology a little bit, because equilibrium, we see the word here. Let me spell it out for you on this little whiteboard I have. And I'm also going to draw this thing. Hopefully you guys can see it. All right, so here's the word equilibrium here. Equilibrium just means balance. Now here's the balance scale. This means that everything is in perfect harmony. Now, with the scales here, you'll notice that, in astrology, you might make the connection with Libra. Now, the word equilibrium actually has the word Libra in it. Hopefully you can see it. But yeah, it's there. Equilibrium, Libra, in other words, which is the balance beam. And this is exactly what life wants out of you. It doesn't want you to be unbalanced in pain and suffering for the rest of your life. It actually wants you to connect those two, yin and yang, balance, where despite what's going on in your life, you can still manifest, and you can always manifest. And through the feeling of emptiness, that will help you to push, be your catalyst into the next phase in your life, just kind of catapult you. Kind of similar to when you draw an arrow. You grab the bow, you pull back the arrow. This is compression. And then once you release, boom, there goes the arrow. It goes flying. So it needs that stage of compression, looking within. Then it goes forward. Everything is like this, night and day, even the seasons. Now with the seasons, it helps you understand balance even more. Because with the winter time, this is the time of what we call death. And this is important because a lot of time, pain and suffering is meant to destroy a part of you. And in spirituality, in mysticism, what is being destroyed is your old self. Because when we're talking about manifestation and moving forward in your life, a part of you has to be left behind. And that is your old self. So if you're in poverty and you're suffering, you're lonely, and you're missing so much, you feel just terrible, that part of you has to be left behind. This is that part that we're very familiar with, the suffering or the winter time in our life, the coldness, where things are supposed to be left behind. We're supposed to leave that behind so that we can move forward into the better part of our life, which is spring, which represents the newness, seeds coming in, flowers coming in, new life, rebirth, in other words, the rebirth of your new self, the new version of yourself. Then it goes into summer, where the sun is shining. This is the glory days, where there is no darkness, there's no cold, and everything is flourishing. It's the peak of heat. This is Leo season, glorious. So this is the idea. It's not so much that you're supposed to stay in this state. It's just that we keep the state alive when it's supposed to be left behind, when it's supposed to be defeated and gone, turned to dust. It's not supposed to come and bother us anymore. So rather than to be afraid of these feelings that we have, it's just important to let them go, no longer dwell on them, no longer identify with them, not think that it's a part of us, our personality, or anything like this, or to be over obsessed with the idea of pain and suffering. It's just simply something that is. And if it is, it's something for us to understand. And if you understand it, then you will manifest a lot better. Your psychological life, your mental life, your emotions will function a lot better because it's not something to fear. It's not something to even run away from. It's just something to understand. Now, whenever you have feelings where you really feel like suffering, that pain that is right there in your heart, you feel like you can't really breathe as much, this is the time where life, the universe, is really trying to get something to your attention. And this is the time where you're supposed to sit with yourself in silence and just understand what it's trying to tell you. Now, where manifestation will help you in this whole process is just learning to meditate, learning to sit with yourself and just understand yourself, let yourself be. And then let the parts of yourself that want to be left behind, let go of the pain and the suffering and just let it be over there. In the Bible, it says, let the dead bury the dead, which means those parts of you that have to be released, the pain and the suffering, let them go and they will take care of themselves. You actually don't have to do anything to release the pain or anything like this. You just simply let it go. And this happens just by removing attention, removing the negative associations we have with suffering and pain and letting them go. They take care of themselves once we remove the attention, once we understand them. Then we get into manifestation, now embodying the new state. And then it becomes a lot easier because there's no more baggage holding you back and you're not keeping your old self alive. You're moving into the new man, the new version of yourself. And that's how it works. So the Bible verse that puts pain into perspective as well is God commanded the light to shine out of darkness. So within the darkness is where you will find the light. So if you go deep within the darkness, which is yourself, sometimes it has to happen through suffering. That's where you will find exactly what you're looking for, within the darkness. God commands the light to shine out of the darkness. And this is hard sometimes because we just stay in the darkness. But once you learn how to navigate the darkness, that is where you'll find the light. That is where you will find yourself. That's where you will find salvation, in other words. Another one that comes to mind is, the day of the Lord is darkness. And that is because it is within the darkness, in the silence, in other words, where you are also fulfilled, where you can imagine, where you can really put yourself in that state, feel those emotions you need to feel, contrary to what you are feeling in accordance to your physical reality, your external world, the darkness. So it's being acquainted with the darkness itself, or those heavy feelings, those emotional feelings. And it goes into yin and yang again. And here, I'll draw a picture real quick, just to illustrate this point, where everything is balanced. Hopefully I can draw this straight. All right. Well, I think most of us have seen a yin-yang in our life. But this is how it goes. A yin-yang. Now here's the light. Well, I forgot to color that in. This is balance, again. Now here's a little hole here. This is the light. This is the light side, and within the light there is darkness. And in the darkness, this is where we dwell in when we're depressed and we feel those heavy emotions. Within the darkness is light, right here. God commands the light to shine out of the darkness. The darkness is represented by our subconscious mind. The light is represented by our conscious mind. So understanding those two as well will help us to navigate our lives a lot better. But there's nothing to fear. And many people do get caught up in that idea of the pain being their identity. But that's just one aspect that is unbalanced in your life. And if that's something that you suffer with, then it is something simply to balance out. So that it's no longer on the forefront of your mind, the forefront of your identity and what you are manifesting in your life. Because again, if you continue to identify with the pain and the suffering, then that is just what is going to continue to manifest physically as well, because those emotions are very intense and they just continue to take the forefront in your mind as well. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them. That's pretty much the whole idea. Now everybody goes through different things, different pains, different things that bother them, and they're all individual. So it all depends on how you process things, how you see certain things, because different things bother different people. So as you simply identify these things, you can write them down on paper. Just analyze, don't judge yourself. It'll help you to feel better, to understand yourself better, and to remove the weight of feeling that darkness within yourself, that pain, that suffering. Okay, so there's a question here. Will being depressed stop me from manifesting what I want? It does not. The only thing that stops you from manifesting is identifying with the state that you want. That will stop you from manifesting. The only reason depression can stop you is because you identify with the negative feelings themselves. I mentioned in this whole time I was talking that Depression is simply a state that is calling you within. So it is trying to impress something within you. It's calling you to look forward within yourself, to look within, to seek answers within and stop looking outside of yourself. Because it's very apparent sometimes that we are far away from what we want, we look out here in the 3D reality. And by contrast, we said we want something better for our life. This can cause depression. But then this happens because it is calling us inward, because inward is the answer where we become fulfilled. So it's actually trying to push you towards a solution. So depression is not the problem itself. It is the state that you're embodying, if that makes sense. So then what depression is simply is a call inward. It's actually trying to get you to embody a different state, get you to understand what is even bothering you. So depression is not the enemy. It is just the state that you dwell in. Depression can help you to understand many things about yourself because you don't want to do anything. You don't want to go out. And a lot of times that's considered a bad thing, but it's just a time to sit with yourself, to really understand yourself. And if you see it that way, if you change the lens and change the way you see it, then it becomes sort of like a help or a catalyst, as I mentioned. It's the catalyst to help you move forward in your life, as opposed to bring you down and keep you down. But naturally, sometimes, we can stay in this state for a long time, but it's not meant to be actually a state where you stay in forever. It's just a passing state, like the day and night cycle. There's a night cycle. You feel contemplative for a little while. In other words, you understand yourself, you go within, then you stop. You go about your daily life, and then everything has a cycle. It's not supposed to stay dark forever. That's like being in a place where it's dark all the time. Some place like Alaska or something. But it's not like that. And it's just understanding as well how everything has a natural flow. If it was always dark, that's out of balance. If you breathe in and you forgot to breathe out, that's out of balance. You'll lose breath and you have to exhale at some point. So when everything is out of balance, that is part of the problem. But depression itself is not the problem. So if you're trying to manifest, depression is not the enemy. It's the state that you are in. You can perfectly manifest whatever you want while feeling sad. But if you change states, you won't feel sad for long, if that makes sense. So it'll all pass, in other words. So how do you find balance? I like this question because balance is something that you have to understand happens in two ways. So it's not about running away from depression or running away from negative feelings and ideas. It's about integrating them. So Carl Jung talks a lot about shadow integration, which is simply understanding your feelings and then not running away from them or hiding them, because once that happens, then it just gets bigger and stronger and it's more uncomfortable. You just integrate it, or in other words, you bring it within yourself and you understand them. Now, I don't want to get too complicated. I was going to say, it was Newton's law the first law of thermodynamics, where it says energy can't be created or destroyed, it can only be transformed. If you are in depression, if you have these really dark feelings, then this energy is just being misused. You're not supposed to destroy it, in other words. You're supposed to transform it, because it is the same energy that makes you feel very, very heavy and causes you to suffer that can help you to feel happy, that can make you feel fulfilled. It is the same exact energy, and energy doesn't disappear. It's only transformed and doesn't get destroyed. But as you let go of your old self that dwells on the suffering, then you will not continue to feel that way for much longer. You're now moving into a new state. So now you're being transformed, but transformation doesn't happen overnight. So you still kind of, as you're moving from one state to another, you still feel kind of the remnants of your old state. But that part has to just be let go by itself. So to answer the question, how do you find balance? I would say the first step is to just identify what it is that is bothering you and not running away from it, but learn how to integrate it. This is actually something that I help with. I help people just understand what is bothering them, what is keeping them stuck, and then help manifestation become natural. Because a lot of times manifestation doesn't feel natural because there is a lot of ideas that we have where it has to be forced. We have to be like this, we have to be like that. But just understanding how everything balances, how everything has a natural harmony, it becomes a lot easier to manifest and just navigate your life, as opposed to how we think about the world and how we think about our emotions and our way of being. It's not about feeling a certain way or doing this technique. It's about expanding your consciousness, not just trying to manifest this experience or this material thing. It's about your whole entire being and about how you think about life, how you think about yourself. It's like a whole big thing. It's not just like, do this technique and then you'll get this. Do this and then you get that. It's a whole integration. And integration requires time. It requires patience. So let me know if that makes sense. But that's the answer. Okay. All right, so I see another question here. There's nothing on the other side. Okay, I see another one here. Okay, let go, denying negative thoughts. Or is it more like just not touching the thought, just watching it? Yeah. So what I mean by let go, you can think about it two ways. You can give attention to a negative thought. So you're giving it attention. So in other words, you're holding on to it. But when you're also holding on to something, let's say a negative idea, it's also holding on to you. So it's a double effort. You're holding on to it, it's holding on to you as well. So what you want to do is you let go first, you remove your attention, but when that happens, it's still actually holding on to you. But then this is when you want to integrate it. So what this means is, as you let go, as you remove attention, it's not going to let go of you. So you still sort of feel it. But instead of running away from it or trying to fight it, you actually work with it. So you try to understand it. You try to integrate it in your everyday life, where it's communicating with you. What is this pain causing you? What is this suffering trying to tell you? What is it stopping you from doing? A lot of times, fear is actually just trying to protect you. It's trying to protect you from embarrassing yourself, from causing more pain or perceived pain. So you have to understand these things, because as it tries to protect you, it's trying to make you feel safe. So rather than your mind making you feel safe or your emotions trying to dictate you, you kind of comfort yourself. And this is integration, because now you're working with the emotion and you're communicating rather than just fighting. And that's sort of what integration means, where it's no longer escape or fighting, it's working together. You're working together with your emotions, with your own mind, and you're no longer fighting. There's no longer a headache or anxiety or depression. It's just something that is communication within yourself. But that's the idea. It's a whole rhythm. It's like a dance, in other words. Letting go, I feel like, is one of those things that is pretty hard to understand, because you hear that a lot. Now, in the Bible, this is described as the Sabbath as well, or rest. That's simply what it means. It's having rest, just not fighting anymore, or peace, in other words. So you want to have peace within yourself. So that's essentially what letting go means. So no longer fighting. All right. Well, I'm glad to answer these questions. And if you guys have any more, I'll just leave it open for a little bit so you guys can ask them. But that's pretty much my whole speech for today. All right, I'm just reading here. Okay, yeah. But yeah, just to reiterate today's ideas. Yeah. Don't over-identify with the pain. Don't over-identify with suffering. If you want to manifest, you can still manifest with depression, with pain. You move from your old state into your new one. Your old state will die by itself. You don't have to do anything about it. Just integrate or let go, find rest, so that you can move forward in your life. It becomes a lot easier this way. No more fighting, no more struggling. Don't judge yourself. Don't overdo it. Just allow yourself to relax into the next state. What do I think of the balancing and the law of one? To move, feel aware of the opposite feeling when encountering the strong emotions. I agree with when you have any sort of strong emotion within you, I do feel like it's important to just understand it, to be aware of it. I was mentioning before about shadow integration, how when you have strong emotions that overwhelm you, it's just about understanding it, not so much fighting it, and just accepting it within your experience so that the energy that is within you gets transformed and no longer stays in that state anymore. And this happens through analysis, through understanding, not through judging it, observing it for what it is, and having peace. A lot of times those emotions are trying to tell you something. And as you integrate those communications within yourself, you communicate with yourself, then you reach a different state of mind. And that's very important. And I feel like that's a lot of times people try to avoid them. And even like, I'm from the United States, there's a lot of emphasis on always being happy all the time. And that doesn't happen by just ignoring those negative emotions or blocking them out or distracting yourself. It's actually going within the darkness, being kind of a deep diver, entering your subconscious and understanding them, immersing yourself in them, then you overcome them. It no longer bothers you anymore as much. You reach a different state of mind when you enter that state, enter the darkness within yourself, into your subconscious. That's when it no longer has a grip on you. So I do believe that it requires balance, but the balance doesn't come from always being happy or always trying to force happiness. It comes from just accepting all tones of life. If you've been through something bad and you overcome it, that's like playing a piano with the deep tones, the bass, and having the light tones as well. You can play a beautiful song. But if you only have one tone, you can't play the same song straight. So it's understanding the balance between the light and the dark as a whole and within yourself as well. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. So I'm glad it helps. All right. Well, with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start getting off here. But I'm going to get off. I'm going to do these lives every Sunday, like around 8 o'clock Eastern time. I live on the eastern coast of the United States. So 8 p.m. my time. So I'll be on next week, and I hope to just connect with you guys. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions as well, you can leave them on my page. I can make videos about it, or even do lives, or address any questions you guys have. And I just hope to create a community where we can talk about these things, just understand manifestation, understand mysticism, spirituality. We can speak on it together in a safe place where there's no judgment. We can just talk and just understand, help each other, understand life better, manifestation better, help each other, uplift each other. My goal is to just help people with manifestation, but not only help people live a better life materially, but just help them manifest better experiences, help them to have peace in their mind, their heart, overall just better life experience. There's no more struggling. I believe that changing the world requires inner change first, and if we all change ourselves, then that'll naturally change the outer world by natural consequence. But yeah, I just hope you guys have a good rest of your night. I'll be on next week. Feel free to drop any questions or any comments on my page or any ideas. I'm open to suggestion. And with that, I'll let you guys go. Have a good night.